All right, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you enjoyed your lunch. Gives me great pleasure to introduce our next presenter, Dr. Lindsay Jesteadt. Lindsay works for the Hypersomnia Foundation as the COO. She is the chief, she's a lot of things. Let me just get this straight. So Lindsay Jesteadt is going to present today on behalf of Sleep Consortium. She is the CEO of Sleep Consortium. She's the COO of the Hypersomnia Foundation. And she also works as program organizer, programmer for the World Sleep Society. Lindsay has a background in education to PhD level and worked for many years in her local school district, specializing in working with families with children with special needs. She's also the mother to Noah, who is 14 and developed type 1 narcolepsy at the age of 4. Today she's going to speak to you about a very new and important initiative that's run by Sleep Consortium. It's called the Dreams Portal. And Lindsay also led a very important landmark initiative this year under Sleep Consortium, which was the ELPFDD. That was an FDA initiative that yielded the Voice of the Patient report published in the last month. So welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you. So what Claire failed to mention is that she also is co-founder of Sleep Consortium. So she is very much involved in all of the work that Sleep Consortium is doing. All right, so good afternoon. I hope everyone had a great lunch. So I feel very privileged to be here today in a room full of people who truly understand the daily ups and downs of living with a hypersomnia disorder. So I too have my own personal story and my own personal journey of dealing with a sleep disorder. So my son Noah was diagnosed with narcolepsy with cataplexy, or NT1, when he was 4 years old. So he went from being a typical child, full of energy, laughter, happiness, smiles and giggles, to a tired, irritable, angry, and oftentimes aggressive little boy. So we're now 10 years into this journey, and it's a journey that none of us ever signed up to be a part of. None of us wanted to join, but here we are. And he's gone from that little boy to now a 14-year-old high school freshman. So, but it was through his experiences, the same type of experiences that all of you have lived, the delays in diagnosis, the trying to find treatments that work, perhaps looking at comorbidities that are often not discussed, let alone addressed in the doctor's office, and all this and so much more that really led to the creation of Sleep Consortium. So we had a goal to collaborate globally and to accelerate the research agenda. We wanted to ensure that every patient's voice was not only heard, but that it was driving real change when it came to research and therapy options. So from the start, we knew that we needed to be inclusive and collaborative. So Sleep Consortium is just that, it's a collaboration. So we understand that we're stronger together than we can ever be as individuals. So that means that everyone is represented at the table. Patients, patient advocacy groups, researchers, clinicians, industry partners, and other key stakeholders. Here are some of the partners that we have, and some of them are local. Hypersomnia Foundation, Project Sleep, Naps for Life, PWN for PWN are all represented in this room. As well as we have groups in Brazil, Abrani, we have groups in Japan, we have groups in Europe. So this is very much a global organization. So this collaboration not only brings together all of these groups, but it brings them together in what's called a pre-competitive space. So the focus is really on data collection and sharing so that we can accelerate research together. So when we work together, we can move the space forward. And one of my favorite lines that I'm sure Claire has heard me say one too many times is, "A rising tide lifts all boats." And that's exactly what this is. We know that if we can all do our part and work together, we're all going to increase. We're all going to make gains, whether it's through pharmaceutical companies creating new drugs, whether it's through patients finding pieces that are working and sharing that with other patients, When one of us wins, we all win. So in the time since our inception in 2021, Sleep Consortium has been quite busy. So earlier this year, we published our patient guidelines for central disorders of hypersomnolence. So these offer really a comprehensive description of the different types of central disorders of hypersomnolence, so narcolepsy type 1, type 2, IH, and KLS. It also offers a description of the diagnosis process and treatment options, and they really are there to create a greater understanding, not just for patients, but also for their supporters and their loved ones, so that at the end of the day, people can have improved quality of lives. With education comes improvements. So there's a great little QR code there. If you scan it, it should open directly to that page, and you can download the digital version of it. And I'm going to warn you, I've got loads of QR codes. So the next piece. So back in September of 2013, the FDA held what was called a patient-focused drug development meeting in narcolepsy. And it was actually the first one of its kind in sleep. Since then, there's also been some in sleep apnea and some other areas. But at the time, in 2013, this was the first one in sleep. So the objective of these types of meetings is really to gather patient perspectives regarding the impact of the disorder, treatments that are available, and to really figure out what it is that patients want, what it is that they're looking for in a treatment. And the primary goal is to ensure that the voices of patients, caregivers, and advocates are incorporated into drug development and also regulatory review. So about 10 and a half years later, earlier this year, in April, Sleep Consortium hosted the EL-PFDD meeting in idiopathic hypersomnia, and it was known in the community as Illuminate Hypersomnia. So many of you may have participated in this meeting with the FDA, or perhaps you participated in the survey, the Illuminate Hypersomnia survey that went out, which had 811 respondents from 21 different countries. But this meeting really was focused on addressing the burden of symptoms and the impacts of IH, and also the ways that individuals are currently managing this condition, and with medications, with lifestyle changes, and all the other approach, the support that they receive, and also their participation in clinical trials and clinical trial recruitment. So some of the key findings that emerged from this Illuminate Hypersomnia initiative are, one, it is a lengthy diagnostic odyssey. So that's quite normal. So we heard a lot of people in the community talk about, you know, when I was very young or maybe even a teenager, I was always really sleepy. But instead of that being seen as a concern that, ooh, maybe there's something medically going on, it was often looked at as, oh, you're a really good sleeper, you're lucky. So what that did is it obviously delayed diagnosis for many individuals. So diagnosis can extend for years or perhaps decades for some people because of this. The second finding is that there is an array of symptoms that impair daily functioning. So in addition to the hallmark symptom of, irrepressible daytime sleepiness, participants really described in detail their severely compromised quality of life. So they talked about their experiences of impaired quality of wakefulness. They talked about mental fogginess or brain fog that just persists well beyond, that transition from sleep to wake. They talked about memory and concentration issues, and overwhelming fatigue and weakness, and the severe sleep inertia. Another finding was the treating and managing IH is demanding, which makes sense. So the community members all provided these compelling accounts of the pervasive effects of IH on school and work performance, family functioning, social and intimate relationships, self-esteem and identity, and aspirations for personal, educational, and career-related attainment. And then there's a significant unmet need that remains for treatment, which I think we can all agree on. So even with this dynamic combination of medications, lifestyle changes, adjustments and accommodations and supportive strategies. Oftentimes, all of these things together still don't give the relief that people are needing to truly make it through a day. And then the stigma and disbelief in the reality of IH really adds to the burden. So many people really just discuss the need to be believed. So when they talk about their symptoms and the severity of it, for people not to just kind of brush it off like it isn't a big deal, or like, oh, you're fine, you took a nap, you'll be okay now. And to really just to believe them and to take it seriously how impactful this disorder is. So with that, I'm gonna go through a little bit of the survey data. Like I said, we had 811 participants from 21 different countries. And I'm only gonna hit on a couple of the questions, but for anyone that completed the survey, you know it was quite comprehensive. So there will be publications that come out later, either this year or into early next year, that go through in much more detail some of this survey data. But this first slide, it's talking about the impact of symptoms on life over the past month. 93% of respondents reported a moderate to severe impact. And when you start looking at what those symptoms, those high impact symptoms are, 77% of respondents talked about an impaired quality of wakefulness or not feeling refreshed. And 77% also talked about fatigue, 72% with the excessive daytime sleepiness. 54% noted brain fog as being one of those truly high impact symptoms. And then 51% discussed problems maintaining focus, attention, and concentration. Now, this chart is looking at the impact of IH over time on key aspects of life. So at the bottom, you see the different types of aspects of life. And there's 3 of these that are above 90%. So that's the work and education, the ability to think and concentrate, and then leisure activities. But the rest aren't far behind. They're all at about 80% or above as being really impacted by IH. When we talk about sources of emotional support, you'll see that only 11% of people who responded to the survey feel that they are fully supported with their IH, that they have full social support. That's not enough, 11%. But I do want to draw your attention to a couple pieces here. So when we look at sources of emotional support, family, friends, look around the room. Who are you here with? You have family, you have friends, you have people that care about you and that want to know and want to support you. So everyone in here, give yourself a little round of applause for being here, because that's huge. Now I want you to look at that really big blue, dark blue line, other individuals with IH. So almost 70% of people have no access to other individuals who are going through the exact same thing that they're going through, who are living those same experiences, having those same difficulties, those same wins on the good days. They don't have access. Again, look around the room. This is where you find connection. This is where you find people that are doing the same thing and living the same life that you can make those connections with. So I urge you, if you have not reached out and talked to somebody or met somebody in the crowd, make it a point to do it during the next break. Make it a point to do it when we go to dinner. Sit with somebody that maybe you don't know and strike up a conversation, because maybe that dark blue line can get a little bit smaller and we can see that teal line get a little bit bigger. All right, this next question talked about how well controlled are IH and its symptoms based on the treatment approaches that are currently available to you. So 60% of participants said that their symptoms are not controlled at all or poorly controlled at best. 60%. There is a substantial unmet need when it comes to treatment options. When we start looking at barriers to accessing treatments, we're going to just focus on those dark teal bars. So those are all reported by at least a third of the respondents. So kind of starting to the right of it. So 34% say, you know what, my medications are not always in stock at the pharmacy when I need them. So consistent access is a problem. 35% of respondents said, my doctor won't prescribe them. So I can't even get a prescription for the medication I need. 45% noted the cost of them or other financial barriers as to why they can't get their medications. And then 62% of people who responded to the survey said they can't find an HCP who even understands IH. And then we wonder why they can't find a doctor to prescribe them, because they can't even find a doctor. When we look at barriers to sticking with a treatment or with medications, again, reported by at least a third of the respondents, 36% of them had concerns about long-term use and what that looks like over time. 39% said that there are side effects that they're just not willing to tolerate. You know, that risk-benefit ratio just isn't there for them. 42% talked about perhaps there's just too many side effects. So maybe it wasn't just a single side effect, but all of them combined. It was just too much. They couldn't stay on the medication. 52% talked about, you know, the treatment was really effective when I started it, and then it lost its effectiveness. Or I needed higher dosages, and then I couldn't take it any longer. And then 56% of respondents noted that the treatment wasn't effective to start with. So again, going back to that huge unmet need of medications. They're taking medications, but they can't stick with them because they're not effective. So then we asked respondents about, when it comes to medications, what would be the most important treatment benefit? Right? So if you could pick anything and you could say that this is what I want the medication to do, but you can only select one answer. So bear in mind that all of these participants could only choose one answer. 59% of respondents said they just want more hours in a day where they feel alert and they feel focused. Another 18% said relief from brain fog and problems with concentration, attention, thinking, memory. So all of those, plus a whole lot more, is in the Voice of the Patient report that was published, I want to say last month. So that QR code will take you directly to that report, and you can download a digital copy of it. I will tell you, I have read this report probably 6 or 7 times before it got published. I had to just keep reviewing it, making sure, there were no random things that needed edited. Every single time I read it, it was just as powerful as the first time I read it. The feedback that we've received from the community who has read it has been astonishing. They've talked about nobody ever understood, and finally I feel like this entire book is nothing but people who understand me and who are dealing with the same things that I'm dealing with. So if you haven't read it, you should. It's pretty good. So with that, so on the back end of the PFDD meeting, we are hosting what's called an adjunct scientific meeting. So what this does, and it's going to be in February of 2025. So what this does is it's really a follow-up to that PFDD meeting. So we bring in the IH clinical and research experts, and they really take the deep dive now into the issues that were raised by the patients and the caregivers. So it's going to build on those patient insights that were shared during the PFDD meeting, and then these researchers are going to bring in that relevant scientific and clinical evidence with it, and it's going to help ensure that the patient perspectives that were gathered during the meeting have a tangible impact on not only the research, but also on drug development processes and the clinical application as well. So as you can see, some of the topics that we are going to be focusing on during this scientific adjunct meeting is brain fog. That was one of the big findings that came out with the Voice of the Patient, was how impactful brain fog is to people and how much of an issue it is. But there's no real measurement tools that are truly assessing it. There's been some in the works. There's been some that have been created for, other areas. Like there is a COVID one that was created to assess brain fog, but nothing that's been created in the sleep space specifically. So that's going to be the first topic. We're also going to talk about barriers to participation in research studies. One of the findings from the report also was that a very large percentage, I don't remember what it was, very large, noted they'd never been asked to participate in a research trial or in a clinical study. So they didn't even know that they were out there or available to participate in. That's a problem. And then there's going to be a discussion of all the other unmet needs that were discussed during that event, and those kind of identifying where those gaps are. So the last initiative that I'm going to discuss today is the Dreams portal. So this data collection platform is really the most critical piece of the puzzle. So it was developed to collect patient-reported outcomes, sleep metrics, and other real-world data to truly advance an understanding and improve management of hypersomnia disorders. So patients are empowered to contribute to research efforts and to guide in new treatment developments. So we've partnered with an organization called RareX, which is a research program of global genes, and then other leading organizations, which you saw on our partners page, that are dedicated to hypersomnia disorders globally, to really establish this initiative. So it's a joint effort that aims to engage the community through easier research participation and understanding of early symptoms to advance the development of innovative treatments. So really, to see any change in this space, we need fresh eyes coming at it from all directions. So we need new ideas, we need new hypotheses being formed. We need to break down the research silos that are currently exist when it comes to the data in central disorders of hypersomnolence. And we need to tackle it from a collaborative standpoint. So we need to identify the data patterns, we need to identify the trends in the data, and we've got to start thinking outside the box. So as a community, there's a lot we still need to learn in this space, and it's time that we really start to seek those answers, and this is the first step in doing so. So how does it work? So here's another QR code. I promised there would be lots of them. So if you want to scan it, I can walk you through it, but when you scan the QR code, it's going to take you to the login, and you're going to create an account. And then, so patients can create an account, caregivers can create an account, and you'll complete the patient-reported outcome measures, or surveys, that reflect your experiences. So enrolling in the platform takes really very little time. I think you need like a password and a username, so it's pretty quick. And you can come back kind of at your convenience to fill it out, so it's not something that you have to sit and complete everything right now. You can log in, check it out, and then come back later. It doesn't require any clinic visits, there's no cost to you, and you, as the patient or the caregiver, retain full control over who has access to the patient's health information. So, if the patient consents, or if the caregiver consents, if it's a minor, clinicians and researchers can access the de-identified data to start identifying some of these trends, these gaps, these patient needs that are out there. And coming soon, we're also going to have the clinical trial recruitment piece. So what this is instead of you just getting the email blasts with all of the clinical trials, once you've got your data in there, there's always those inclusionary and exclusionary criteria that you may or may not fit into the study based on. So based on what you've already input into this platform, it would only send you trials that you should qualify for. So once you log in, the first piece of it is a consent. So this is where you're going to identify who has access. So some people might want to log in and use this purely as their own medical record place. You can upload your sleep studies, you can upload your medical pieces, you can complete the surveys just so that you can see how you're doing. Other people might say, you know what, I really want it to be used for research, so they would choose that consent. Once you do the consent piece, it then takes you to what's called a head-to-toe survey. This head-to-toe survey is literally just that. It goes from everything from the top down. So it's going to ask you about your health. Do you have any issues with your brain, your hearing, your eyes, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your skin, your everything, your sleep. And when you note that you have either a diagnosis of something in one of those areas, or you note that, yes, my sleep is a problem, I'm diagnosed with IH, it'll then, utilizing branching technology, it'll open level 2 surveys that will strictly assess the sleep pieces. So these level 2 surveys in sleep were developed by a team of international sleep researchers, and they helped to identify the specific sleep domains that needed to be included so that it would be research ready, they would have the type of data that they need, and it would be less burdensome to patients. So when you click that you have a sleep disorder, all of these level 2 surveys will open in sleep, as well as the quality of life surveys, the medication surveys. And these surveys will be deployed at different times throughout the year. So it's not necessarily a one and done situation. So it might be that you complete it now and you might complete it again in 3 months, 6 months. And the reason for that is to collect the longitudinal data so that we can see changes over time. In addition, if, say, you have a change in medication and things are going differently for you than usual, you're more sleepy, you're less sleepy, whatever that case might be, you can go in as well and redo the surveys without them being deployed to you so that you can keep record of it and know exactly what's going on. So why join the portal? So first, it's patient-centric. It's easy to use. It's easy to input your data about your sleep patterns, your symptoms, your treatment outcomes. The surveys are really tailored to capture diverse experiences across different subgroups. The secure data handling, so we're compliant with data protection regulations, ensuring patient privacy and security. The de-identified data is only shared with approved researchers. The real-time insights, so this is, as I said, you can use this for your own medical records, so you can view your personal data at any time, you can track your progress over time, and then you'll also receive aggregate data because that'll be shared with the community, so you can kind of see what the community is saying, how the community is doing with each of these pieces. And then you own your data, so you are the one who would decide who can see it, who it's shared with. Again, it's de-identified. And then you can revoke that access at any time. So if you at first said, you know what, I want to sign up, I want to do it, I want to share my data with the researchers, and then you change your mind, you can. And then you can use it just for your own medical record. So when you access the DREAMS portal, you not only create your own medical database, but you can help accelerate research, the development of new therapies, and you can expand the understanding of sleep disorders by interconnecting with rare and non-rare research-ready domains. So how is this different than other registries? Because there's definitely a place for registries, but this is different in the fact that utilizing our partner RareX, their platform, it enables the rare disease communities to share cross-disorder data with researchers. So although you might be coming into this platform through the DREAMS portal for sleep, other people might be entering the platform through a gene deletion portal or a different disorder or diagnosis that they have. So there are over 100 different communities right now on this portal, on the back end of the large portal. And based on that head-to-toe survey, what we found is about 80-something% of them know that they have sleep issues as well. So although they may not have a diagnosis of a sleep disorder, they have the issues that are associated with it. So it will open up those domains for them as well so that they can hopefully get a diagnosis if there is one to be had. So here's the QR code one more time, just in case you didn't have a chance to get it. So yes, so if you're under 18, your parents will sign up, but there will be certain surveys within it so my son's 14, so I signed him up, and there's certain ones that I can complete for him, but there's other ones that he then sits and completes. So it'll just ask, are you able to complete it on your own? And if you are, then you would go in and you would answer it. You're welcome. here is the contact information. All right. That is it. Thank you.